One cold morning, a black woman found a newborn baby on her doorstep. She raised her as her own, never knowing the truth. 25 years later, one letter changed everything and revealed a past more shocking than she could ever imagine. If you found a baby outside your home, what would you do? Would you call the police or take the baby in yourself? Tell us in the comments below. We want to hear your heart's answer. It was a chilly November morning when Angela, a 32-year-old nurse, opened her front door to find something that would change her life forever. There, lying on the doormat, was a tiny newborn baby wrapped in a pale pink blanket. The baby's skin was light, her tiny fists clenched, and her cries barely above a whisper. Angela froze for a moment, unsure if she was dreaming. She looked around, hoping to see someone, anyone, but the street was empty. Angela's first instinct was to pick up the baby and hold her close. The little girl's warmth seeped into her arms, and Angela felt an overwhelming rush of protectiveness. She carried the baby inside and called the police, reporting what had happened. Officers arrived quickly, but after examining the baby, they found no identifying information, no note, no name, no trace of the mother. That night, as Angela sat on her couch, rocking the child, something inside her shifted. She had never been able to have children of her own, and here, fate had placed one right at her doorstep. Over the next few weeks, Angela visited the hospital daily to check on the baby. Eventually, she made the decision to apply for adoption. It wasn't easy. There were background checks, home visits, and endless paperwork. But after months of waiting, the adoption was approved. Angela named the baby Grace, believing she was a blessing sent from above. Life as a single mother was challenging, but Angela poured every ounce of love and care into raising Grace. The girl grew into a bright, curious child with an infectious laugh and a talent for painting. Angela kept the story of Grace's arrival a secret, promising herself she would tell her when the time was right. But Angela never could have imagined that the truth, hidden for 25 years, would turn both their lives upside down. Years passed quickly, and Grace grew into a remarkable young woman. She was smart, compassionate, and fiercely independent, just like Angela had raised her to be. Angela was proud beyond measure, watching Grace graduate from college with honors and start her first job in graphic design. But as Grace entered adulthood, she began to notice small gaps in her life story. Whenever she asked about her birth, Angela would give vague answers, saying only that her mother couldn't take care of her. Grace sensed there was more, something her mother wasn't telling her. One evening, while visiting for dinner, Grace brought it up again. "Mom," she said softly, "I need to know where I come from." Angela's smile faded. She had always dreaded this moment, but she knew Grace deserved the truth. Angela told her everything: the cold November morning, the baby on the doorstep, the lack of clues, and the long adoption process. Grace listened quietly, her eyes wide. When Angela finished, Grace didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "So, you don't know anything about my real parents?" Angela shook her head. "I tried, Grace. I really did, but there was nothing to find." Grace felt a strange mix of emotions, gratitude for the woman who had raised her, but also a deep yearning for answers. That night, she lay awake wondering, who had left her? Why had they done it? And most of all, were they still out there? The questions began to consume her thoughts. She started researching late at night, digging through public records, adoption files, and even old newspaper archives. One day, she found something unexpected: a short article from 25 years ago about a mysterious baby found outside a nurse's home. It didn't reveal much, but it planted a seed in Grace's mind. There had to be someone out there who knew the full story. She decided she would find them, no matter how long it took, no matter what she discovered. Grace's search intensified over the next several months. She contacted old police officers, local social workers, and even posted in online forums dedicated to adoption reunions. Many leads went nowhere, but she refused to give up. Then, one afternoon, Grace received a message from a woman named Margaret claiming she had worked at the hospital where Grace had been examined as a newborn. Margaret said she remembered the case vividly, not because of the baby herself, but because of the strange man she had seen pacing outside the hospital that day. He never came in, but he watched through the window, as if making sure the child was safe. This was the first real clue Grace had ever gotten. Who was that man? Could he have been her father? Grace arranged to meet Margaret in person. Over coffee, Margaret shared more details. The man had been white, in his late 20s, wearing a dark leather jacket. He had stood outside for nearly an hour before disappearing into the crowd. Margaret admitted she never reported it, assuming it was a random passerby, but now she wasn't so sure. That night, Grace told Angela about the meeting. Angela's expression darkened. "I don't know who that could have been," she said quietly, but Grace noticed the hesitation in her voice, as though she was holding something back. Grace pressed, but Angela refused to say more. Frustrated, Grace decided to dig deeper without her mother's help. She went back to the newspaper archives, this time focusing on missing persons and unusual events from the weeks before she was found. What she uncovered made her heart race. An unsolved case involving a young white man reported missing just 3 days before her birth. His name was Daniel Hayes, and the police suspected foul play. But the case had gone cold, and Daniel was never found. Grace couldn't explain why, but something told her Daniel Hayes was connected to her story. She didn't know how yet, but she was determined to find out, even if it meant unearthing secrets her mother had kept buried for decades. Grace's investigation into Daniel Hayes led her to old police reports, which revealed something startling. Daniel had been romantically involved with a young black woman named Lillian Carter. Lillian had disappeared around the same time Daniel went missing. Witnesses claimed they were deeply in love but faced harsh criticism from both families due to their interracial relationship. Grace's heart pounded as she read. Could Lillian be her biological mother? And if so, what had happened to them? She tried searching for any trace of Lillian, but records were scarce. Then, almost by accident, she stumbled upon a faded photograph in an old newspaper clipping. Lillian standing beside Daniel, smiling, visibly pregnant. The date on the photo was just weeks before Grace's birth. Grace brought the photo to Angela. "Do you know this woman?" she asked. Angela stared at it for a long time before nodding slowly. "I saw her once," she admitted, "the morning you arrived." Angela explained that she had been getting ready for work when she heard soft footsteps outside. Peeking through the curtains, she saw a young woman place something on the doorstep, a pink bundle. By the time Angela opened the door, the woman was gone. Grace felt her pulse quicken. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" she demanded. Angela's eyes filled with tears. "Because she begged me not to. She said she was in danger. And if anyone came looking for you, I was to protect you, no matter what." This revelation shook Grace to her core. If her mother had been in danger, was it possible Daniel's disappearance was connected? And who, or what, had she been running from? Grace knew there was only one way to find out. She would have to locate Lillian Carter herself. Armed with the old photograph and a burning need for the truth, she began tracing every lead: public records, church registries, even speaking to elderly neighbors who might remember the couple. What she didn't know was that the truth, once found, would force her to rethink everything she believed about her family, her past, and herself. Weeks turned into months, but Grace's determination never wavered. Then one rainy afternoon, she got a phone call from a small-town pastor in Georgia. He said he had seen her online posts and recognized the woman in her photograph. "Her name is Lillian Carter," he confirmed. "She's been living here for years under a different name. She's my neighbor." Grace's hands trembled as she booked a flight the same day. When she arrived, the pastor led her to a modest little house at the edge of town. An older woman opened the door, her eyes the exact shade of Grace's. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the woman whispered, "Grace." They embraced, both crying uncontrollably. Inside, over steaming cups of tea, Lillian finally told her the truth. She and Daniel had been deeply in love, but her family had disowned her, and his family had threatened them. When Lillian became pregnant, Daniel vowed to protect her. But days before Grace's birth, Daniel was attacked by men hired by his own relatives. He was badly injured and went into hiding, promising to meet Lillian once it was safe. But the danger never passed. Lillian feared for her baby's life. On the morning Grace was born, she heard rumors the same men were looking for her. Desperate, she left Grace at Angela's doorstep. Angela was a nurse Lillian had once met and trusted, and fled. Years later, she learned Daniel had died from his injuries. The grief was too much, and she never found the courage to return for her child. Grace listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. She now understood the sacrifice her mother had made, but also the decades of pain both had endured. That night, Grace called Angela. "Mom," she said softly, "I found her, and I love you both." Angela wept with relief, knowing her daughter's heart was finally whole. The truth had been buried for 25 years, but now Grace had two mothers, two histories, and one future filled with both love and healing. Subscribe to the Celeb Scene and press the bell icon so you never miss an incredible true story like this one.